Tough, another dang episode.
All of that shit is racist as hell and puts a whole weird spin on the people, but it's just not how it works.
Okay, this is Muzzle Tough. Like and subscribe now, just in case.
Definitely just in case. Okay, Mayor, what do we got today?
Ben, you said you wanted to do some reactions and you wanted people to get to know you, right?
I suppose so,
I found
yes.
a video that you would love because it's from the people you love. It's about the people you love. It is Abbott and Preach talking about Jews.
I do love Abbott and Preach, and for the record, I do love the Jews.
Kanye, Kyrie, Jews. Why folks don't care about anti-Semitism.
Yeah. So why don't we cut through the bullshit and let's talk about it? There's a lot of Jews. As a black person, the only time we ever heard about Jewish people was either like when they were running some company or when they were referenced in rap songs or hip hop music videos. The only time you really internalize someone's Jewish is when you hear about them achieving things. Right? Folks have to come in and demystify the reason why. Because right now, I don't know why. Because if you don't, we're still going to see what it is. We just won't know why it's there. You get what I'm trying to say?
I think we live in like the age of like zero nuance. And this goes for the companies that kick out the people who have a statement, like freedom of speech over everything, I think, is really what it comes down to. And then shame on all the people who go and get kicked out from shame on the companies. That's what I'm saying for like what Preach was saying, where he's like, you're going to speak with your words and not your dollar. You're going to still sell Yeezys, even though you kicked out Kanye. Like, come on now. But the reality is that like in every situation, there's the risk of causation correlation where like let's just say I grew up also hearing about like the protocols of the elders of Zion and all this other kind of stuff. I heard about this kind of stuff too. I'm not like, out of the loop when it comes to Jewish conspiracy theories, but I think it has to do with the true enemy, which is classism. And it's like, I think that the reality is you could look at all sorts of things. In different countries, there's going to be different ways to look at who's higher up and who's not. But there's really a big divide in people who have money that makes money for them and people who work for their money, right? Like that's just what it is.
Sure.
And the thing is that people, the look on the Jewish people right now from like the lens of society is that Jews are very much in the other side, which is basically like the haves. You know what I mean? But all the Jews I know, for the most part, like if I look at a numbers of all the people I know, most of them are in the have-nots. Most of them work for a living and all this. And by have-nots, you could be a millionaire and still be a have-not because you still work for that $1 million every year.
Dude.
The year of our Lord. Like, the thing that what they're talking about is not a biblical, like, they're not talking about the whole saga.
It has to do with it. Everything with where we're at now has to do with everything that happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. It all connects, and I can prove it to you.
No, but what are we talking about, though? What does that have to do with anything?
We're talking about where we are, and when I'm saying we, I'm using the royal we as a people. For instance, banking. Let's demystify. Here we go. Ready? I can demystify the banking. Ready? It goes back to the 15th and 16th century and the laws of usury. Usury is money lending with the intent of making profit. Okay? It says in the Torah that you can't lend to your brother, with interest. Okay? So Jews would not lend to each other with interest. Now, Christians, for some reason, the Catholic Church adopted that law unto their own people, and they couldn't lend with interest. So what happened was naturally the Jews became the money lenders. Catholics didn't want to money lend. They didn't want to engage in it because it was a sin. And Jews could only lend to Christians for a profit, right? The play Merchant of Venice is all about this, right?
Okay.
And in the 15 and 1600s, Jews are literally cornered in by the legal systems of law and religion to literally just be the banks. And they happened to be living in Italy at the time, which was that was the World Trade Center. But there's a way you can demystify one example of Jews being predominant in a field. banking, it goes back to the laws of usury in the 15th and 16th century under Catholic rule. Boom, Italy. There you go.
What about Hollywood?
Hollywood, similar answer. Basically, the reason people moved out west to make movies is because of copyright and trademarks on certain camera equipment, right? So they moved to other states, and it just happened to be that the people who moved to make movies to California were Jews. They were the first people to be in Hollywood, like Mayor Goldwyn and so on and so forth. Like,
okay, these ones at least are historically based, which is like, and not to say the Bible isn't history. Like,
no.
It's just that it's not.
No. So okay,
recent
so
history.
There's banking and there's Hollywood. What's the next one?
I guess the issue is not like just the different places, because you could find all sorts of people in all sorts of places. It's just that people love to live in simple terms also, where it's like this type of person is smarter than this or worse than this or better, like whatever it is.
I also
life
realize
is not that simple.
Chance, but for instance, I'm amazed that Chicago, LA, and New York do not have Jewish mayors. I'm amazed that we haven't had a Jewish president. I'm amazed because we've achieved greatness in so many fields. And by the way, when I say greatness, like Bernie Madoff, like one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever, was a Jew.
Achieved extremes.
Right. We achieve extremes. I'm just saying, if you want to start drawing lines in a direction, you just have to pick that direction and go with it. And with Jews, we happen to be across a very wide spectrum. I think it does help to demystify it. Like, for instance, I spent some time in San Diego. I spent 45 minutes in San Diego speaking with the Sicarii, the Hebrew Israelites.
Link down below.
I'll add a link. And it was very interesting. It was very educational. And there's a lot of strong feelings going around. For instance, if someone asked me, well, do you think the black Hebrew Israelites are really Jewish? I'd be like, yeah, they're Jews. Sure. They believe that the Torah was given to them on Mount Sinai, and that's pretty much all it takes. So,
do they believe you're Jewish?
Aha. See, like I said, there's a lot going on within the Jewish community. It's very interesting. There are a lot of so-called white Jews who would say that they're full of shit and don't know what they're talking about. Some of them, so I hate to say it like this, but the ones that I've spoken to, the Sicarii, they'll accept that my ancestors converted to Judaism in Persia during the time of Mordecai and Haman and all that, right? But they won't accept that I'm a pure descendant of Abraham, right? So, right, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man from Africa. If you repeat that fact, they can't laugh at you. Oh, it's a great song. It's a great
What's
song.
the next line?
I understand that, but it's like we can't even. There's no. You can't maneuver this thing. You can't maneuver or ask because you're always walking on eggshells. That's sus. Whether you want to question or you're like, that's. The minute you talk about something, then you get X'd. That's weird.
I agree. It is weird.
And here, yeah. I mean,
I'll say it like this: if you tell me what's worse for the Jews, Kanye saying what he said or Kanye getting canceled for what he said, I'd say Kanye getting canceled. To the extent that he got canceled was horrible for the Jews. The real anti-Semites, the people who really hate Jews, who want other people to hate Jews, canceled his social media. They canceled.
Oh, like it's some sort of 4D chess move or something?
It's chess, right?
Nah,
they're putting out the pawn so the bishop can take the queen. I think.
I don't think it's all so planned out and like there's some puppeteer. Like that's the big problem.
Protocols of the elders of Zion.
Here's the issue. If I owned like Facebook or something, and there's people talking negatively about any race or religion, it's kind of against the community guidelines. Like it's kind of like the thing where people were copying on Twitter. They were taking like Elon Musk bought
things
it,
that
and then they started
Kanye
all copying
said,
people.
But Kanye didn't say anything that was against Jews. He was just saying
He
the
said, "When I
facts.
wake up, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people."
Do you
Which,
know what
by the way,
DEFCON 3 means?
it does. It's all optics, dude. It's like when
Exactly.
you
It
throw
doesn't
in
mean
when you
anything.
throw in the when. If I was like, I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on like the Haitians or something like that, that's also probably going to get me banned. You know what I mean? Shout out, preach. Let's get some final thoughts on here. I got a couple really quick. I'm just
Go
gonna
ahead.
lay them out.
All right,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, basically, here's the thing. I'll tell you like this. At the end of the day, if people go on the internet and incense violence or any of this kind of stuff, if they go ahead and they say like, "Oh, I'm gonna do whatever," I understand you're getting taken off. It's just like the Twitter thing where people were going and pretending to be like the CIA and being like, "Whoops, we just did X, Y, or Z or whatever," and they got kicked off of Twitter. Now, you can make the argument that like, "Oh, freedom of speech." All this. There's a fine line with everything. There's nuance with everything. And
no, they're just talking about it. For instance, I'll just say it like this: if someone,
I agree with them.
it doesn't have to be mystified. If you want to ask me if I run the banks, I mean, no,
No one's talking about you or me.
But they are talking about us as a group. You know what I mean?
Okay. I can speak on behalf of the working class Jews. I can speak because that's the thing. There's the divide is everything but the divide that people call it out for what it is. There are people who are influential, powerful that are not Jewish. People who are influential that are powerful that are Jewish. There's there's all these things. The ability to talk about it and all this sort of stuff. I agree with them that we should be able to talk about it. The other side of it is the fact that on the internet, the most vocal people are like the most like anarchist almost, where it seems like they just want to like destroy and like complain and like this is a lot of like the people who are very vocal on the internet. And it creates an environment where eventually the slippery slope is it goes from freedom of speech to freedom of abuse and stuff
Right.
like this.
But
And I think it's a tricky thing.
So okay,
Not easy. It's not easy to navigate. So people have to just sort of
pretty
snuff
easy
it
to
out.
navigate. It's pretty easy to navigate.
I don't think so.
I think people need to, yes, of course. For instance, Chase Bank, JP Morgan. Did they think for a second before they canceled his bank account to think of the optics of what that would look like?
I think
Did they not
thinking
have
if
a
we
PR
don't
team?
do something, but here's the thing.
If they,
At the end of the day,
if
I'm
you
not-
don't
I'm not-
do
I'm not-
something, if you don't do anything, the 24-hour news cycle rolls along.
Yes, that I do agree with. The problem is I can understand from their perspective if I had to play devil's advocate, and the devil in this case is sure, but like to me, it's like this: the world that we live in. This is so complicated to put
It's
in under
not.
2 minutes. Like
It's not complicated.
the people that Ab and Preach are talking about are Jewish, sure, sometimes not Jewish. They're talking about the elite. They're talking about the non-working class. It seems like it would be the Jewish elite in some cases. If you look at the numbers, there's going to be other people. There's going to be other families that are not Jewish that also have tons of fucking power and have been around a very long time. And as far as the numbers, like they're saying, there's a certain amount of like publicized stuff and stuff that's in the zeitgeist that people talk about that does come up a lot. And it's easy to go ahead and start looking at that. But I've heard of other things where the thing starts changing, like the
Mazel Tovs!